Today I'm going to walk you through this Polyphia-style riff that I wrote for TikTok. I'm using my Ibanez RGEW 521 FM, and I've got it on position 2, which I feel like is pretty standard for this style. Speaking of being standard, I'm using Neural DSP, and I'll put the preset I made in the description. It's mostly just a clean tone, but it's got a little bit of distortion. Since it'll be playing by itself, I wanted to give it some extra character. And you can find the tab for this on Patreon for free, as well as the backing track that I used to record this video. Anyways, you want to pick a key that has a lot of open harmonics. I'm in E standard, so I chose to do this in E minor. And I feel like these type of riffs work best if you don't go crazy right off the bat. I mean, if you look at like Goat, ABC, Plain God, as complicated as those riffs are, they start out with just like a quarter note chord. So that's what I'm going for here. And this opening chord voicing is just octave E's. I feel like in this style, open chord voicing sound better than chords with a lot of color tones. And at this point, we're a full beat into the riff, so it's time to start getting complicated. I chose to go with a muted selective picking part here to kind of establish this 8th note groove. And I tried to have a little bit of a melody here at the end, but most of this part is muted, so it's just open strings and hammer-ons, just making it easy on myself. Just throwing some muted strums here and there to fill in the space, and then you have your first 4 bars. Then I just took that rhythm that I established and reused that as like a template. And this is where I noticed that I've gone almost 2 whole bars without any harmonics, so I'm throwing in some here. So right here, I wanted to have a big slide up as kind of a reference to Goat, but then I also included this harmonic minor triplet run, so this is basically just Goat now. But it does a really good job of transitioning to the next chord, which is a B7. So the whole chord progression just ends up being an E minor to a B7. And after like 30 takes, I finally got it recorded. And then on this B chord, it's actually really important to bend that B a little bit. The riff just sounds really flat if you play that B without any kind of embellishment. I'm playing the same melody that I played over the E chord here, but an octave up. And this was kind of a short riff, so instead of ending it here, I wrote a little pickup to go back into the riff again. The second time through the riff keeps the same basic structure, the same sort of rhythmic template, but with some added variations in the melody and the rhythm. And I'm doing this repeated slide note here because I don't have a tremolo. All of a sudden it got really hard to record right here. I don't know if it was writer's block or I didn't warm up properly or what, but something was making it really difficult to play. But I was able to make my peace with the dog and move on to the next part of the riff, which is another triplet run that's not noticeably different than the first, but a lot more confusing to play. And then I finished up this riff by going back to the B chord and playing a melody that sounded more like a resolution. So at this point I realized I'm basically just writing Goat too, so for a backing track I based it around this reverb kind of pluck sound. And I made this stab by taking some brass and string samples, throwing them into Harmor, and using that to add some distortion. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like all of my Polyphia-inspired riffs, it eventually devolves into Goat, but I think it turned out pretty well, and I'm happy with how it sounds, even though it's not exactly what I was going for.